Hey guys, what's up? MMA Savant here, and we're going to talk about UFC 244. Headlined by Nate Diaz is going to be taking on Jorge Masvidal. East Coast meets West, or West Coast meets East Coast. Stockton, California meets Miami, Florida. The co-main event for that card is Kelvin Gastelum is going to be taking on Darren Till at 185 pounds. You also have, Johnny Walker is fighting Corey Anderson, Stephen Thompson versus Vicente Luque, Derek Lewis versus Blagoy Ivanov, Gregor Gillespie versus Kevin Lee. Those are all fun fights. So let's get into it, guys. Okay. Gregor Gillespie versus Kevin Lee is a lightweight fight, 155 pounds. The wrestling standout out of Edinburgh University is Gregor Gillespie. He is thus far undefeated in his MMA campaign. His last fight was a win over Yancy Medeiros. And Kevin Lee is coming off... Excuse me. I just had dental work done, so I have a loose partial. A loss to RDA. I like Gregor Gillespie in this fight. His wrestling is just better. His aggression is... he's relentless in his pursuit to the takedown. Kevin Lee might have a wider skill set, boxing and submissions probably, but yeah, look for this to be another loss for Kevin Lee. Gregor Gillespie to get this thing done. TKO in the third round. I just don't see where Kevin Lee goes from here. He's too small for 170. He's too big for 155, for 145. And because he's got kind of an ego, he'll do things that allows him to get knocked out by a jiu-jitsu guy, or things that shouldn't happen in his fights happen. Kevin Lee tries really hard to let the world know how cool he is and how with it he is. But that's not important. Important is to win the fights, to show up and show out. So I don't want to spend I don't want to spend a lot of time on that fight. I'm going to pick Gregor Gillespie, the gift, TKO in the third round. And, yeah, okay. Skip that one. Okay. Next, we have Derek Lewis is going to be taking on Blagoy Ivanov. Blagoy Ivanov is this fight is at heavyweight. A lot of people are going to pick Derek Lewis because of his power. And Derek Lewis is one of the kind of people that doesn't have to win a round, doesn't have to win the entire fight. He only has to win 1 second of the entire fight to win the whole fight. Basically, he's got one punch knockout power. And we've all seen it. It is very real and it's very dangerous. But that's about it. And I know it's a good thing to have if you had to pick something. It's a pretty cool trick, like Hendo said. I may be a one-trick pony, but it's a pretty good trick. So when I was living in Dallas, we used to have a lot of LFA, Legacy, RFA cards come through. And I was talking to one of the guys who trains with Derek Lewis out in Houston. And he said that Derek Lewis does not work on his ground game. He doesn't think he needs to. Because he's the biggest and the baddest of all the guys out in Houston at his gym, which is fine. And he said whenever anybody tries to take his back or do anything, he literally just stands up. That is not the mentality you want to have if you're going to be a prize fighter. Because that might work at Legacy and that might work at other things. But once you get guys who are as big as you and as strong as you with more talent, the cream is going to rise to the top and you're going to see where you are. Now, he's fighting Blagoy Ivanov. Blagoy isn't near the size of Derek Lewis. He doesn't have near the punching power. But he has a wider skill set. if you remember back a few years ago, Blagoy was the guy that scored a point on Fedor in a Sambo match. So I've been following him for years now. If you look at Blagoy's record, he's got 2 losses. He's got 2 losses after getting stabbed in the lungs in Eastern Europe somewhere. And being in a coma. He's got a decision loss to JDS, who just finished Derek Lewis in Derek Lewis's last fight. And he's got a loss to Alexander Volkov, who's a 6'8", 6'6" maybe, who Derek Lewis beat. Former champion in Bellator, on again, off again, or whatever. Those are his only losses in his whole career. And he's built like Cormier or Fedor or something. He's got that pudgy, 5'11", unassuming body type. But because he's a Sambo guy, and Sambo has a lot of tie-ins with judo and everything, I like Blagoy's body type to win this fight. I like his. This might sound funny or weird, especially if you don't follow fighting. You don't really understand. I like that Blagoy's shorter. He's got that big gut to use as leverage for throws on the taller man. Think Fedor with his fight with Frank Mir. He was able to get the underhook and use his lower hips and use his own hips against the taller man, Frank Mir's hips, and get the leverage he needs to throw him on the ground, dump him on his head. My only complaint against Ivanov is he never looks really motivated to win a fight. He just looks like a lot of times when I watch his fights, I'll be like, "Come on, man! Fight him! Get after him! Finish him!" I'm probably wrong on this one, but I'm going to go ahead and pick Ivanov. Probably by decision. Maybe submission, rear naked choke. But I could be very, very wrong and watch Ivanov get knocked out in the first 10 seconds. But I'm going to stick with Blagoy for this fight. And, okay. Moving on, I have a 28-minute video timer allowance, whatever. I don't know how to change it, so that's what I have to work with. And I don't want to do a 2-part thing. That's weird. Next up on the list here, we have Stephen Thompson is going to be fighting Vicente Luque. Vicente Luque is a fan favorite. He's one of my favorite guys. If by some reason you've been under a rock for a couple of years and you don't know who he is, go check out his fights on Fight Pass. His fight with Brian Barberina is one of the best fights I've ever seen. Anyway, Luque is coming off a win over Mike Perry. Wonder Boy is coming off a loss to Anthony Pettis. Spectacular Superman punch off the cage. Really beautiful fight. But it's been a minute though. With that, as a fan, I want to see what Luque can do against higher guys. But as for this video, I'm going to say Stephen Thompson got back to basics. He got over the KO loss. Look for him to come out like he does. Lead leg forward to keep people at bay. To use offensively and defensively. And to be able to circle out away from the power hand of Vicente Luque. Look for Stephen Thompson to be a tactician in this fight. Look for him to be a sniper. And look for him to get the decision win over Vicente Luque. I'm not predicting a clinic. I'm not predicting a knockout. I'm just going to say he's going to outwork him and do what he needs to do to get the win. As far as ground game goes, Vicente Luque is probably better, but Stephen Thompson's jiu-jitsu is fine. If you don't know, he's married to either Jean-Jacques or Hegan or somebody's in the Machado family. He's married into this somehow. I forget how it goes, but anyway. So he's got good jiu-jitsu coaches. He's got good jiu-jitsu time on the mat and everything. Look for Stephen Thompson to get this one done by decision. Sorry, it's just bugging me. It's not sticking right. Okay, Johnny Walker, the Sizzle versus Corey Anderson, the Steak. Johnny Walker came to the UFC. He's dynamic. He's 6'6", got an 80-inch reach or something. He knocks out Khalil Roundtree. He knocks out Justin Ledet. He knocks out Misha Serkinov. He's got a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, which we have yet to see. He's one that everybody has on tap to dethrone John Jones, me included. He's fighting Corey Anderson, who's a decisionator. He only wins by decision. His last fight was a win over Ilir Latifi, and before that, his last fight was a win over Glover Teixeira, by decision, of course. But he has losses by knockout. So while I'm going to pick Johnny Walker by knockout because that's the way he wins and that's the way Corey Anderson loses, I want to say this though. What I want to say is I don't want the fight to be easy or fast. I want to see Johnny Walker with some parity and with some trouble against him. I want to see how he gets up because I want to be able to make the claim that after seeing how his ground game is and how his anti-wrestling is and how he deals with adversity, that yes, he can beat John Jones, or no, he cannot beat John Jones. He'll just get raped for the entire 5 rounds. So I want Corey Anderson to get the takedown, and I want to see what Johnny Walker does with that. But the way Corey Anderson loses and the way Johnny Walker wins, I got to go with Johnny Walker early in the second round. I think Corey Anderson makes it out of the first round. Coming up, we have Kelvin Gastelum is fighting Darren Till. Darren Till is coming off a spectacular loss to Masvidal, and Gastelum is coming off a awesome fight against Israel Adesanya, which was a loss for Gastelum. Gastelum's been at middleweight for a minute now. This is Darren Till's first foray. This is his freshman fight at middleweight. Guys, I'm a big believer in if you move up a weight class, you need to take an easy fight. I know it sounds like, oh, well, I'm a real fighter. I would never do that. If you want your career to be better, you don't want to do what RDA did and lose his first fight because he wasn't used to the thing, or what Luke Rockhold did. You're just not used to. You haven't acclimated yet, so you're not really used to being in that weight class. Now the weight cut was draining Darren Till. It was leaving him susceptible to knockout. He's a big guy. I think he's about 6'2", maybe. He's got a big, wide frame, wide shoulders and everything. If this was Darren Till's third fight in the middleweight division, I would give him a lot better chance. But Kelvin Gastelum is not the guy you want in your freshman fight in a new division. He's just too good. I mean, look what he did to Tim Kennedy and Michael Bisping and Vitor and Uriah Hall, and he took Tyron Woodley to a decision, split decision. Back when Tyron Woodley was in his prime. Kelvin Gastelum has better boxing, better wrestling. I'm going to say he's got better cardio, but I don't really know. Darren Till can win this fight, but the pressure is on Till. This will be his third loss in a row. I watched his videos. He's taking it very, very seriously. He's really working on his cardio. The boxing and striking might go to Till, but the pure boxing for MMA and the counterattacking will go to Gastelum. Wrestling goes to Gastelum. Jiu-Jitsu is probably a wash. While Kelvin's probably better in Jiu-Jitsu, it won't be so much better that it's going to, make that big of a difference. I understand that Till's been submitted by Tyron Woodley in their fight, and I understand that. Oh, actually, no. Gastelum got submitted by Chris Weidman, but there's a big difference in the jiu-jitsu of Woodley and Weidman. Anyway, so enough rambling, guys. With that being said, I'm gonna pick Kelvin Gastelum to stop Darren Till. In the second round. Okay, moving on. The main event, we have Nate Diaz from Stockton, California. West Coast is going to meet Jorge Masvidal, fighting out there in Miami. From Miami, actually. West Coast meets East Coast. A welterweight fight. Nathan Diaz is coming off a beautiful, spectacular win over Anthony Pettis. Jorge Masvidal is coming off an awesome flying knee KO over the heretofore undefeated Ben Askren. 5 seconds. Amazing KO. I had Ben Askren win that fight, but that was a thing of beauty. Okay, let's break it down. Ground game. Jiu-Jitsu. Diaz all day. Second degree black belt under Cesar Gracie. He's just better. Wrestling is kind of a moot point for either guys. They don't wrestle. They might anti-wrestle to avoid a takedown. And striking, for boxing, Nate Diaz. For power, Jorge Masvidal. The more dynamic striker is Jorge. He'll use kicks and stuff that Nate typically won't use. Cardio, Diaz, but we've never seen. I've only seen Jorge go 5 rounds once, and that was against Benson Henderson. It was quite a few years ago. What else? Nate primarily only loses by decision. He's got one finished loss to Josh Thompson, and one finished loss to Hermes Franca by armbar whenever Nate was a blue belt and Hermes was a black belt. Other than that, he doesn't get finished by anybody, including killers like Rory McDonald, Anthony Pettis, and everything. Anyway, whatever. But here's something that a lot of people won't believe at first if they're a big Jorge Masvidal fan, until they go research it themselves. Nate Diaz is a much better finisher. Like, Jorge Masvidal, here's his wins right here. He's got 2 wins by submission, 15 wins by KO or TKO combined, and he's got 17 wins by decision, which means 50% of all his wins are by decision. Where Nate has 4 wins by KO or TKO. If you include the time on the show, when he won the Ultimate Fighter, if you include those 3, because under the Zuffa umbrella, he's got 15 submissions, and he's got 4 decisions. And his 4 decisions were clinics on, who did he beat? He beat Cerrone, Pettis, Michael Johnson, and Josh Neer by decision. I think those are all his only ones. Okay, so if I didn't watch this fight, I'm going to we're going to this card. And if somebody told me the fight ended in the first round, I'm going to assume that Jorge Masvidal got the jump on Nathan Diaz and knocked him out. But the longer this fight goes on, the more it favors Diaz. Neither guy's going to wrestle. Jorge Masvidal will not take it to the ground. Now, Jorge Masvidal might not be a black belt officially, but as far as MMA grappling goes, he's every bit a black belt as anybody else is. If you were to go to your gym and grapple with your black belts, he would do just fine. He would get the tap on you guys. You might get the tap on him, but he's not an untalented grappler. He is a good grappler. He's just not Nate Diaz level. I'm going to say this, like, I'm a fan of Anthony Pettis and everything. But I thought that fight would be harder for Nate. Coming off a 3-year layoff. That fight, when looking back in hindsight, was almost a tune-up fight for Nathan Diaz. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to Pettis, but it was like Diaz beat him in every facet of the game. He beat him in striking and grappling and cardio and everything. He beat him pillar to post. Now a lot of people say that Nate Diaz looked winded. Yeah, he did, but he also really, really warmed up in the back, which might have been a detriment or whatever. But he got the fight. He got the win. I mean, excuse me. I think he's loose now. I think he's ready to go. He's fought at 170 many times. It won't be an issue for him. He is the taller man. He is the rangier man. I believe Jorge Masvidal comes in at 5'11" with a 72-inch reach, I think. And Nate Diaz has a 76-inch reach, and he comes in at 6'1", I think. Now, 76 is his wingspan, but the way they lean into it and turn the shoulder over, it actually probably 78 or 79 functional reach. I don't know how you'd classify that. The longer the fight goes on, the more it favors Diaz. Neither guy's going to wrestle. Nate Diaz does not really get finished by people. It's very rare. I personally don't believe in flukes in MMA, so I'm a big Diaz fan. You got finished, you got finished. I don't believe in flukes, other than Leandro Silva and Drew Dober and stuff like that. Other than that, I don't believe in flukes. I'm going to say Nate Diaz gets this one done. Look for Nate to finish Jorge in the 4th round. I don't know with what. I don't know how. But look for Masvidal's power bar and his energy level, like on a video game, to just kind of come down as the time goes on. And look for Nate to start out slow. Oh, and Jorge Masvidal is going to come out fast. I studied his videos and everything. I watched a lot of his training footage. He plans on finishing Nate in the 1st round. So if that doesn't pan out for him, if something goes awry, his confidence levels and his stuff will start to wane and stuff will start to deteriorate and lessen. But this is MMA, guys. This isn't like anything can happen. Jorge Masvidal come out and knock out Nate Diaz in 5 seconds or whatever. It's very possible. But this is such a great card. So I'm running out of time here. Nathan Diaz to beat Jorge Masvidal in the main event. Me and my wife are going to be in New York at Madison Square Garden. Have a great time. We're not in the nosebleeds and we're not in the ring side or cage side. We're right in the middle there somewhere. It's our first time in New York City. It's going to be so much fun. So from the bottom up, we have Gillespie, Ivanov, Thompson, Walker, Gastelum, Diaz. My possible upset of the night is Masvidal, Anderson by decision. My personal upset of the night is Masvidal, then Anderson being boring against Johnny Walker, or Till catching Gastelum. But Masvidal is my number one upset of the night possibility. Okay, guys, that's it for me. MMA Savant. That's it.